All right, so welcome everyone, holding by the Book of Leviticus Chapter 16. Again, want to welcome everyone, holding by the Book of Leviticus Chapter 16. We are in Chapter 16, verse 14. That is where we're holding. We spoke last week, I guess. About the Ketores, right? We spoke about the Ketores being outside, and then going inside, and the whole thing about having, only having pure Torah, not Torah mixed in with anything else that we spoke about. Last week. So we are going to continue again. Book of Leviticus chapter 16, verse 14. Torah says, "V'lakach midam apar." V'hiza betzbo al panei kaporis kedma l'nei kaporis yaz sheva pamim min adam betzbo. So here the Torah says that you're going to take some of the blood of the bull. Again, this bull was used for this was an offering, right? This was the only animal that was offered on Yom Kippur. That was a sacrifice, right? The other the goats, right? Or one of them, went to Azazel, was either fell off a cliff or died in the desert, whatever it was. The other, was used as a sacrifice, so to speak. So here the Torah says you're going to take some of the blood of the bull. You're going to sprinkle. He's going to sprinkle his finger upon the eastern front of the ark cover, and in front of the ark cover, he's going to sprinkle 7 times. Right, he's going to sprinkle 7 times, 7 significant, right? 7 times, we'll see, from the blood with his finger, right? So that's what the Torah tells me. Now, come on, Rashi explains. Rashi over here explains that what's going on. First thing he says is you sprinkle with his finger, right? Now, how many times you're going to sprinkle with the blood over here? 1, right? Rashi says 1 is implied, right? Now, where's Rashi get this from? Because the Torah says he's going to sprinkle with his finger, right? He's going to sprinkle with his finger, but doesn't tell me how many times, right? It's ambiguous, right? Like many times in the Torah, as we mentioned many times, ambiguous, right? Torah many times just tells us statements, doesn't explain, right? So the Torah says he's going to sprinkle with his finger, doesn't tell me how many times, right? Now, at the end of the verse, it says he's going to sprinkle 7 times in front of the ark cover. Okay. Right? So, very good. So, even though at the end of the verse, Torah tells me he's going to sprinkle how many times? 7. Torah here is silent. Right? At the beginning of the verse, Torah doesn't say anything. Torah is quiet. So what does the silence represent? That he sprinkles a minimum number of times. Right? As the Gorari says, the Maharal explains, what does it mean? The minimum amount of time? Once. That's it. He only sprinkles 1. Right? And that's what it would seem from the beginning of the verse. That it says he takes his finger, sprinkles with his finger upon the eastern front of the ark, right? So sprinkling over here means, or seems to mean, once. Right? Doesn't tell me. Right? Doesn't tell me anything. Right? It only tells me once. Right? So what's my assumption? What would my assumption be over here? Once. Even though at the end it says it's going to sprinkle 7 times. But since the Torah doesn't tell me at the beginning, it just tells me once, so my assumption is it's once. Right? Even though it doesn't tell me. Right? That's what Rashi says. Then the Torah says, in front of the ark cover, right? There was this parochus, or kaporis as it's called over here. I think, 1 second. Kaporis is the one that covers the ark. It's it's the ark covering. Right? And there it says, in front of the ark cover, he's going to sprinkle 7 times. Now he's going to sprinkle 7 times. Now, what does it mean 7 times over here? So it says Rashi, it means 1 sprinkling above and 7 below. Now, where does the blood go? Right, that's an obvious question also. Where did it go? Right, it doesn't say. Right, does it touch the ark cover? I don't know. It doesn't say anything over here. Right, but the Gemara says that none of the bloods that sprinkled actually touched the ark cover. Here, what does the Torah tell me? The Torah says upon the eastern front of the ark cover. Where is that? Rashi says above. That's above. So it's aimed higher. That's what it sounds like. It was aimed, the Gemara says that it's aimed higher than the other 7. And the other 7 were below. So 1 is above, 7 is below. So that blood that's above is not touching the ark, right? Not even gonna spatter, right? No, splatter. Sorry, it's not even gonna splatter over here, right? The ones that does above doesn't hit the ark cover. All right, so explains Rashi over here. Yeah, comes on the Rebbeinu B'chaye. Now the Rebbeinu B'chaye over here says that these sprinklings, when was it done? Right? Again, this whole thing is talking about when? It's talking about Yom Kippur. Right? That it was done. It was done on Yom Kippur. So the sprinklings on Yom Kippur were done actually 8 times. Right? 8 times because 1 was above, as we mentioned, 7 below. So now what is it? Well, okay, very good. So 1 is above the ark. The covering of the ark. 7 go below it. Okay, so you say, who cares? What's the difference? Or the difference goes up, goes below. So here Rebbeinu B'chaye says that you sprinkle once above. And then what does that correspond to? What does it correspond to? Well, what do we think about when we think of above? Right? Maybe we'll think about a person's head, right? What's the top of a person's head? The moach, brain. Right? So he says the greatest mile, the greatest, benefit, most important thing over here includes in it wisdom and understanding. Right? When we're talking above, we're talking about wisdom and understanding. Now, what is wisdom and understanding? Right? What's a simple explanation of that? So, simple explanation is that that's the greatest thing a person can use. Right? Is their brain. Now, the question would be, depends what you use it for. Doesn't matter what a person's IQ is. We don't care what a person's IQ is. Right? A person can have the highest IQ and be an animal. Be no different, than an animal. All right. So it depends what a person uses their brain power for. A person can use it for good things. Can help others and, help develop cures for diseases, other things. Or a person can use it to be cruel. Right? They, can bully people, other things. We could say that, maybe we'll look at it in somewhat of an extreme way. You say, well, a person can use the brain this way or that way. You can act a certain way or not. Now, what's the obvious problem? Right, the obvious problem is, what if someone says, well, I'm not going to be an extremist this way. Not going to be an extremist the other way. Right? So I'll be middle of the road. I'll be parv. I'll be neutral like Switzerland. Right? That's what someone might say. Not going to affect anyone necessarily in a negative way. Maybe not do anything, so positive either, but it's not going to be called negative. So somewhere in the middle. Somewhere in the middle. But here Rebbeinu B'chaye says, what's the greatest thing over here? The greatest thing is wisdom. Because we know the Mishnah Pirkei Avos says that's the only thing that lasts at the end of a person's life. That's what they have. They can't do so many physical things. They're much weaker, etc. So it's a question of, okay, can they still learn? Does their brain work, so to speak? Because when your body starts to fail, doesn't necessarily mean your brain does, right? But when a person's older, much older, what do they have? Well, what do they have at the end of their life? What do they fight for? Honor. Some people fight for honor. Some people still try and stay young, even though, they're much older. So, people have plastic surgery, they'll do other things. I remember once, I mentioned this story before. Well, it's a good story anyway. I remember once, I was waiting for somebody somewhere. And whenever two women walked by, not that, I was necessarily paying attention, but it was kind of hard not to. Because one woman had spiking red hair, right? The hair was spiked, spiked red hair with a mini skirt. Okay, so you think, okay, well, what's the big deal? This person had to be in their late 60s, early 70s. So I was like, you got to be kidding. I mean, you could tell just by the wrinkles on their face, but, okay, definitely wasn't her natural hair. That's, I don't think someone that age got flaming red hair, but, flaming red hair in a mini skirt. So you still have, somebody at that age still trying to look like, they're 40 years younger or more, right? So to speak. So, so again, if that's the greatest thing a person has or potentially has, the obvious thing is, how do I use it? Now, you can have very intelligent people that, convince themselves of certain things, and fool themselves into doing things that obviously aren't right, but they justify it, in many different ways. They'll say that's what people do. I'm not going to get caught, whatever it is. They'll justify what they do. Doesn't mean it's right. By any stretch doesn't mean necessarily in this thing they're so learned, but they'll say whatever they say. So, but they could be absolute animals, same time. Not a contradiction, because knowledge and what a person does with it does not make them moral, right? One thing, I think there are a number of lessons, that the Holocaust taught. One lesson for sure that it taught is that being smart, being an academic, lawyer, doctor, whatever they were, right? First people who joined the Third Reich were not these skinheads we think of today. They joined willingly and thought and were convinced that treating a Jew like an animal or treating, your dog better than you treat a Jew was normal. They didn't think there was anything wrong with it. So you see that intelligence does not breed morality. Totally doesn't breed morality. Heard a great rabbi once say, I'd be willing to, send my kids to university. Someone asked him, obviously, about, sending, Orthodox Jews to university. And he said, yeah, I'd be willing to do it if you could guarantee me, or let's say better, if there was a guarantee they'd come out more moral than when they went in. If they would come out more moral than when we went in, we can have a discussion. I mean, you're talking more than, I would say, 30 years ago, 40 years ago. Today, you can't say that, no question. Back then, you couldn't say it either, right? But that was his answer. That was his answer. Someone asked me a similar thing many years ago that, I should be more open-minded, right? Send my kids to university. So I said, I consider it. I said, you got two boys. I said, I consider it. You send your two boys to yeshiva. So I would never do that. They would be brainwashed. It's a cult and it's this and that. Oh, so you're not that open-minded. So I should send my kids to a cesspool, and they're not going to send their kids to yeshiva. Okay, right? Everyone makes their choice. So as we always say, people are not that, openly honest and or intellectually honest. But here, I go back to Rabbeinu Bachai. Rabbeinu Bachai says the greatest thing that includes many other things, wisdom, right? Wisdom and understanding. So wisdom and understanding, we would say that's great, if you're using it for the right thing. If you're not using it for the right things, why God gives someone a higher IQ than someone else, right? Someone more intelligent than someone else. Could be any number of reasons, right? That, maybe we're not privy to. But at the same time, there's only one true wisdom. There could be some aspects of truth in other things, but it won't be 100% true, right? Meaning that, there's some things, a number of things in Christianity, for example, quotes in the New Testament, where do they come from? From us. Help others, where does it come from? It comes from us. Took all our good stuff and ruined it. Right? But, it doesn't necessarily mean there's not some aspect of truth. They may have some aspect of truth, might be. But, the whole thing is false anyway, so it really doesn't matter. But there are a lot of things that can have, samplings of truth. 100%. Doesn't, again, it does not mean that the whole thing is true. Just because they make true statements, okay? Right? They can make 100 true statements. Okay, doesn't matter. If the book is false, it's false, right? That doesn't matter. So, intelligence, can breed ignorance at the same time, can breed manipulation, right? Why do I say ignorance? Right? Because here you can see what King James did, what this version of the Bible did, and different mistranslations and different things, in order to show what their real true agenda was. So here they're using their brain power to mess things up, right? In order to fit their agenda. The Torah says I read 2 weeks ago, right? And Parshas Bereshit says at the beginning, it talks about man. God said, let us make man. Let us make man in our image. So commentaries ask, what's the obvious question? Obvious question is, who's he talking to? Who's the we that the Torah is talking about? Right? So commentaries say, well, God's talking to the heavenly courts. He's talking to people or spiritual beings, beneath him, that they don't have independent power. And God's asking about creation of man. Now, does God have to? No. Does he care about their opinion? No. Right? But it's showing humility. Showing an aspect of God's humility. Okay? What do the commentaries say? Commentaries say a person can make a serious mistake. A person can think, guess what? It says, let us make God in our image. Well, that's great. But couldn't a person make a mistake? Couldn't a person make a mistake and say, hey, there must be two gods. So there must be, other deities, so to speak. There must be more than one God. Can't people make that mistake? Yeah. You look at Zoroastrianism, you got a good God, a bad God. Good God does the right thing, does good things. Bad God does bad things. So Christianity says, no, we'll just blame everything bad on Mr. S. On the evil inclination, whatever you want to call him, the angel of death. You blame it on him. He's got independent power. Obviously not true, right? Obviously not something we believe in, right? But again, person can convince themselves of anything. Now, if they make a mistake, and the Torah says this a number of times, says it by Sodom also. God says, let us go down and let's see what's going on. What do you mean? Who's we? Same question. So the answer is, if a person wants to make a mistake and they're going to manipulate the text to make their own mistake, or come up with their own interpretation, okay? It's not the Torah's fault. Everyone's got free choice. Everyone makes decisions. If someone decides to make a bad decision, it's their choice. Totally their choice. Right? What if, I just learning this morning, the laws of Lashon Hara. What if someone makes a statement and someone misconstrues that statement? They misconstrue it and they make a mistake and they say X, Y, and Z. Do I have to worry about that? Do I have to worry what someone else is going to say? Now, the question is, depends what you said. If it's something you had no intention for that, right, whatever it is, you had no intention with the conclusion the person made. You had absolutely zero intention. So that wouldn't necessarily be Lashon Hara. Why? Because that's not what you meant. They misconstrued it. They took it out of context. So do I have to worry, or does a person have to worry that they made a desecration of God's name over here? In theory, not in, again, desecration of God's name has a specific definition, right? But we'll say, you're doing something that's egregious over here. Is that your fault? And what's the answer? No, totally not your fault. If someone were to say, someone were to ask, and they say, hey, the Torah itself seems to be anti-non-Jews, because we don't hold you allowed to marry, non-Jews, or that the Torah is anti-pig, or the Torah is cruel in the sense God forbids you shoot away the mother bird to take the eggs, right? Obviously, a person says that's cruel, it's heresy. Essentially, it's heresy. But someone asks you, well, isn't that what the Torah says, and this and that? So you answer them. So you say, yeah, that's what the Torah says. And let's say you come up with a good explanation or not so good explanation, and then the person goes ballistic. I can't believe the Torah says this. I can't believe this. Do I have to worry? I didn't say anything wrong. I quoted what the Torah says. Quoted what the commentary says. So you, as this person, has an issue, right? There are people going to have issue, take issue, okay? Right? So what would Kaufman say? Let him go eat kugel. Who cares? Let him take issue. What does that have to do with what I said? Nothing. But we all get bent out of shape. Oh, I said this. They're going to, they took it this way. If a person told the truth, said what the Torah says, right? Say what the commentaries say, then you don't have anything to worry about. And if they go on and on and on, and say terrible things, does that mean we put a stumbling block in front of them? No. What? You can't talk Torah with someone. You have to be worried they're going to take it out of context. They're going to blaspheme. They did it themselves, right? They totally did it themselves. I have to worry. I have to worry because who knows what? They took what a person said. They took what you said and went to town with it against the Torah, against God, against mitzvahs. That's a desecration of God's name that we caused because we put a stumbling block in front of them. No. Everybody makes a choice. If that's what the Torah says, they don't like it, okay, then go eat kugel, right? They don't have to like it. They want to blaspheme against it, okay. That's their choice. You can rebuke them, whatever, but at the end of the day, you didn't do anything wrong. Because this question comes up. And questions come up a lot. People say, yeah, but I said this and the person went like this and like this. Okay. But if you said what the Torah says, I got nothing to worry about. If you misrepresented the Torah, that might be a different issue. Right? But if you said what the Torah said, and they don't like it, doesn't fit their world outlook, they start saying other things, we have nothing to worry about. We have zero to worry about. Is that people get bent out of shape when, people start saying, negative things, and terrible things. So, sometimes you got to put them in their place. Sometimes, there's an obligation to give rebuke, even if they're not going to listen, right? That doesn't matter. Totally doesn't matter. But we don't necessarily have to feel bad that we've done anything wrong. And that's not putting a stumbling block in front of someone. Putting a stumbling block in front of someone, something very specific. Someone who made a Nazirite vow, which you can't make today, right? You can't make today because we don't have a temple in Jerusalem, can't bring sacrifices. So if a person would take on the Nazirite vow, can't eat grapes, grape juice, drink grape juice, wine, can't walk into a cemetery. I'm sure it's going to bother a lot of people, right? Can't go into a cemetery. So you have a Nazirite in your house, right? Sitting down to eat, whatever the case is, and you want to have some wine. You want to have some wine. So you bring out some wine, put the wine on the table. That's putting a stumbling block. Because he's not allowed to have it. You're going to say, but he can get wine anywhere. You're right. He can go out, go to a store, buy wine. Right. But you put it right down on the table. You put it right in front of them. So that's a stumbling block. Right? That's something specific. But if they're doing it anyway, if they're saying it anyway, just because you have this conversation, I have to worry. I have to worry what comes out of it, and they're going to say this, that, and the other thing, right? Then you won't be able to talk to anybody, right? Anyone who's secular or any non-Jew, right? You won't be able to talk to anybody. Right? That wouldn't make any sense. People can say what they want. Hopefully, they say the right thing. They don't say the right thing. It's not my fault the subject came up. Totally not my fault. Right? Again, they don't like the answer. They don't like it. And they say things that we get all worked up. And we'll say, we'll try and defend the Torah, and people will make fun of it. They don't like your answer. You never gave good answer. You never gave the greatest answer of all time, and they don't like it. Okay, right? And they start saying, "Oh, you really believe that? You really think this? You really?" So you answer honestly. They don't like it. They go, Google, right? But I don't have to worry. I don't have to worry one iota I did anything wrong. Just because the subject came up. But again, people get bent out of shape and say, oh, what the person said, and I caused it. You didn't cause it. You're having discussion. They got free choice to say what they want. They made the wrong choice. Okay. They can make the wrong choice. Not because you egged them on to say it. They said it on their own. They make the bed they lie in. That's the way it is. I have to worry. Someone's gonna say this and that, It could happen. You have a conversation with someone. It could happen. A person's going to say this, that, and the other thing, and say terrible things. Oh, you're square. You believe this. Come on, get a life. This, that. You can say a lot of negative things about you, about God, about the Torah, about 1.5 million different things. Okay. Well, what does that have to do with anything? We may feel bad. They're making, they're making fun and this and that. And, you say something, they say more things. Because you try and rebuke them, they don't listen, blah, blah, blah. Okay? But you don't have to worry, you're sitting over here. Just because the subject came up. Right? They're going to be guilty for what they say. Let's say. They'll be guilty, okay? But I can't worry. I can't worry what they're going to say or not because 100% because they said it. They got free choice. Everyone's got free choice. Right? But you're not going to get blamed later. Say, oh, look, you made desecration of God's name. It's not desecration of God's name. They don't like what the Torah says. Doesn't fit in their world outlook. Okay? But the fact we said it and we quoted it and we did everything right. I'm saying we did everything right over here. We did everything right. We don't come out smelling like a rose. Torah doesn't come out smelling like a rose, but they say all kinds of negative things. Okay? It's their choice. You didn't do anything wrong. It's not desecration of God's name. If a person misrepresented that, okay, it's something else. That's totally something else. Right? But if they didn't do that, I think Torah's anti-pig. Okay. Remember, that's not a question. That's a statement. That's an agenda. And I think, okay, you don't have to answer that. If they ask a question, it's a different issue. But you have to see if they're asking a question or not. And if they do ask a question, what's behind what they ask? Right? It doesn't take the greatest amount of wisdom, to figure it out. Because if they ask a question, they'll throw out a question, let's say like this. They'll say, where was God during the Holocaust? Well, God was where he always is. What's the question? No, why did God kick 6 million Jews? Well, it takes a lot of people to kill 6 million Jews. Right? You had the Croatians, you had the Russians, you had the Lithuanians, you had the Ukrainians. I mean, you had the Poles, you had the Germans, a lot of people. Right? But there's a great book. There's a great book out there. It's called Hasidic Tales of the Holocaust. You want to read it? And they say, no, it's just a question. I make religious people fidget. I make them feel uncomfortable. That's why I ask it. Oh, okay. So you can drop dead. Why waste my time? I mean, you don't tell them to drop dead, right? Say, why waste my time? Oh, you're not really looking for an answer. You have to see. You have to strip away the question to see. Some people, I would say a lot of people, not that hostile. They ask a question because they ask a question. And they're interested in an answer. Okay. Right? But again, if someone's going to use it against you and throw it down your throat, and that, so you're going to say, what difference does it make? But people want to egg you on. I've had this a number of times. So what is, is it true this, that, and the other thing? Now, obviously there's something behind it. And whatever answer you're going to give, they're just going to make fun of. So I say, yeah, what about it? Well, this, that, don't you think, whatever, What's the matter? What's the matter what I think? I don't really care what I think. You're just going to take it and make fun of it. No, I'm really interested. They have to see. But a lot of times, people make statements. They're not questions. If they don't ask a question, I don't have an obligation to answer. Now, if they ask a question, there's, if you know the answer, you can answer them. If you know the answer is not going to go anywhere, and you know they're going to make fun of it anyway, there's no point. Right? There's no point. You have to see what's behind it. Right? That's the point. You have to see what's behind someone's question if they would ask a question. Yeah. So the Rabbeinu Chai says, as we mentioned before, one of the greatest things, right, that's included over here is wisdom. Wisdom and understanding. So we're clarifying what do you use that wisdom for? Yeah, but he says further. He says that he brings down from the Gemara. In Yuma 53b, and it says over there, the Kohen would count, right? Just like it says, by Musaf and the repetition of the Shmona Esrei, style meditation, whatever you want to call it on Musaf, on Yom Kippur, it says, Kacha Yamoine. This is how the Kohen Gadol would count, right? Achas, he would say one. And so we would say one, and he would say achas v'achas, 1 and 1. Then we say achas u'shtayim, 1 and 2, achas v'shalosh, 1 and 3, achas v'arba, 1 and 4, until you get to 7, right? 1 and 5, 1 and 6, and 1 and 7. And that's what we say, right? The person leading the service will say achas, he'll say 1, and we say achas v'achas, achas u'shtayim, right? It's repeated, right? It's repeated part of Musa. So here he says, okay, this is part of the service. This is part of the thing that there are 7 times. You get 7 times the sprinkler. Right, again, 1 and 1, 1 and 2, 1 and 3, etc. So it says over there that he says further, why is it done that way? Why is it done 1, 1 and 2, 1 and 3, 1 and 4? So here the Rabbeinu Chai says, in order that he doesn't make a mistake. In order that the counting doesn't make a mistake. In other words, you say 1, then he says 1 and 2. Then he says 1 and 3. There's a stop in between. Right? They delay a little bit in between. Why? Because Rashi over there says, so it doesn't make a mistake in the count. It's got to count. Right? It's got an obligation over here to count. So you want to make sure it doesn't make a mistake. So instead of saying 1, 2, 3, 4, you say 1 and 1, 1 and 2. You give him a chance so he doesn't make a mistake. You're going to say, how could a person make a mistake? Right? You're talking about the high priest over here. You're talking about the high priest over here. What are you worried about? He's going to make a mistake. So again, we're fallible. We can make mistakes. Well, think about all the work he's doing on Yom Kippur. Think about all the running around and going to the mikveh and back and forth and this and that. He's busy. He's got a lot to do while he's fasting over here. Right? They want to make sure he doesn't make a mistake. Right? With this, with this sprinkling. With this sprinkling over here. So then he brings down, why does it say before the ark covering over here, you're going to sprinkle 7 times, right? Why, the question is, okay, what's the language over here? The Torah says, yazir. What does yazir mean? The sprinkle, right? Essentially, that's what it means, right? It means to sprinkle over here. So he says, so why does it say that? In order to teach you that you need to do it right. You need to count right over here, right? So you're going to sprinkle 1 above, 7 below. Again, 1 and 1, 1 and 2, 1 and 3. Right? So you have that amount. And so you don't make a mistake. So you can say, okay, who cares? Right? What's going on over here? Again, so a mistake isn't made. Then in other words, you don't count the first sprinkling with all the rest. You got a break in between. Because you might make a mistake. Because really you have to count 8 times. What happens if you forget one? Right? You got the first one. Then you got achas, we say achas, then you say achas ushtay, achas v'achas, 1 and 1. Right? Then you got 1 and 2, 1 and 3. So how many is that? They tell me it's 7, but the first one, you gotta remember the first one. So if I have the first one, it's how many altogether? Rabbeinu Bachai said at the beginning, they're 8. Right? 1 above, 7 below. But you have to remember the first one. So the whole thing is to make sure you don't make a mistake. Right? Make sure you don't make a mistake over here. Now, one of the rabbis over there says Rabbi Yochanan, that even if you didn't count the first one with all of them, right? You didn't make a mistake per se, but he holds even if you didn't count the first one, it's all right. Right? So even after the fact, it's okay. Right? Others would say, no, you got to count right. You got to go back and do it. You didn't do it right. And we saw before there are certain things, right? We'll just throw this out there. There are certain things that that a Kohen does, or that the high priest does, etc. That he's got to get it right. Right? If he doesn't get it right, then he can be liable for death penalty. Right? We saw that last week. Bring the incense from inside, outside, or whatever the case is. You're liable for death penalty. It's pretty severe. So there are things that the Kohen, or the high priest, or a regular Kohen doesn't get right. They can be liable for death penalty. Because there are things you got to be extremely careful about. Other things, maybe not that case. Maybe it's just a rabbinic prohibition, or could be a Torah prohibition, but they don't get the death penalty, whatever it is. Right? But there are things that, if they get it wrong, they made a mistake, they can pay. They can pay a serious price over here. So here, Rabbeinu Bachai concludes, and he says, you got to think in what's going on over here. Right? You got to think. He says, what are these sprinklings all together? What are they? Right? I have 1 above, 7 below. Well, what's going on over here? So he said the intention over here is, he says, this sprinkling, what's this sprinkling done with? Right? What does the Torah tell me? Blood, right? What the Torah said, lakach midam apar. Right? You take from the blood of this bowl, the Hizabet's bowl, then you're going to sprinkle. You're going to sprinkle the blood. Very good. Why? What's the intention over here? What's the intention over here? He says the fact that the sprinkling over here was done with blood. He says the blood that's on it, we're going to see what that means in a second. He said it's the blood of Yom Kippur. It's the blood used for Yom Kippur to atone. And that's placed on the iron on the ark. And why is it called? Why is the covering of the ark called the kaporis? What's the root of the word kaporis? Chaf peresh, like Yom Kippur, to atone. It atones for the sins of the Jewish people. So interesting. Interesting, that's what the Medrash brings down. But interesting, what's this blood? What's this sprinkling? What does it represent? So you tell me, okay, very good. Right? Represents atonement over here. Okay. Right? But over here, it brings down, there's a homiletic interpretation, different places in the Talmud. And what's this blood talking about? The blood that's on it, Rabbeinu Bachai says, what's the illusion? What's the illusion over here? The story about Nebuzaradan, known as the butcher of Babylon, right? Nebuchadnezzar's right hand butcher over here, killed tens of thousands of people. In the end, he's able to convert, which boggles the mind. Which the Gemara says, and mentioned before. I learned this on Tisha B'Av, right? One of the things you can learn on the fast of the 9th of Av about the destruction of the temple. And all the people who murdered all the Kohanim and this and that he did, and eventually repents and God allows him to convert. What's the obvious question? This guy's a butcher. Killed thousands of the best of Jewish people. God allows him to convert. If we were playing God, what would we do with this guy? We would have made him suffer 1,000 different deaths. Even after he's dead, doesn't matter. Bring him up, kill him again. Bring him up, kill him again. Right? We brutalize this person. That's not a Jewish custom. Right? You saw by the end of the Holocaust. You see that survivors had an opportunity, to totally destroy, Nazis that were left. And they be blotted out, may they rot wherever they are. They didn't. Not just because they were so emaciated. That wasn't the problem. It's not in their nature. Right? It's not in the Jews' nature to do that. But a person can say, come on, aren't there Jews that commit crimes? Right? Not about religious Jews here. I'm about secular Jews. Aren't there secular Jews part of the mafia? Yeah. Don't they commit crimes? They do. I'm not saying everybody, right? But the ones that do, and drugs and other things, how can it be? Because they have an evil inclination. So, the further away a person goes from Torah, the more they're like everybody else, like the other nations. But in general, there are three things. Three things that are, what's the word? That are three things that character traits, that's the word, that are character traits of Jews. That says they're Rahmanim by Shanim Gimel Chasad. They get easily embarrassed. Sorry, they have compassion for others, Rahmanim. By Shanim, they get easily embarrassed. And Gimel Chasad, and do a lot of chesed. Do a lot of acts of loving kindness. For a Jew to murder, it's out of character. Out of character. Again, I'm talking about cold-blooded murder, not self-defense. It's not in a Jew's nature necessarily to murder. We're not rabble rousers in general. That's not, that's not who we are. That's not the makeup of our DNA. Does it mean that a person can't get accustomed to certain things or whatever? Yeah. But, the further away a person goes from his heritage, the more they're like everybody else. They're like the other nations, right? Could a Jew go into crime? Yeah. Could he even murder people? Yeah. An Orthodox Jew, can they do terrible things? Sure. They can use the Torah. Torah can be called, be called the Samamavis. It can be called death if the person abuses it. Is that what God wants? No. Are there people that can abuse the system? Yeah. It happens. 100% it happens. Not a good thing, but it happens. You can have terrible people that, you can have a husband doesn't want to give his wife a bill of divorce. She can't get remarried, right? She's considered like a chained woman. We're calling the guna. The person's going to hold out for a lot of money for other things, et cetera. It's wrong. It's totally wrong, right? But there are, people will do it because, they're spiteful, and they're angry. So people say, so change the system. So let her initiate it. Can't do that. Right? Because the Gemara says, who's the harder to get married, a man or a woman? Right? A man. He's got to make the commitment. So if he has to make the commitment, he has to make the kedushin, the sanctification. He's got to be the one to break it. Now, so what about a prenuptial agreement? So in the modern Orthodox community, probably 30 years ago more, they had a document that if a person got divorced, they sign this document before they get married, saying that they agree to go to base and give a bill of divorce. Now, the other Orthodox community didn't like it, didn't like the language. Sounds like it's forced, right? You can't give a forced bill of divorce. That's why there's a whole problem with the get law in New York, this divorce law in New York, for that reason, because they can freeze his bank account, you can do all kinds of things. And he's doing it under duress. Now, according to the Rambam, that's okay. Right? The Rambam says that really the person wants to do the right thing. Well, what's the problem? He's got an evil inclination. So therefore, why doesn't he do the right thing? Right? Because, he doesn't want to. He just, he's got an evil inclination. So the Rambam says you can beat this person with an inch of their life. And even if they say at the end, you're about to throw them off a cliff, and say, going to give that bill of divorce? Says, yeah, I'll do it. Isn't that the rest? The Rambam says no. Why not? Because he really wants to do the right thing. He's really not a bad person. But he got carried away. His ego, whatever, he got carried away. His evil inclination took him away. But he really wants to do the right thing. Now, just about all the other commentaries disagree. And they say you can't do that. That's a forced bill of, that's a forced bill of divorce. You shut his bank account. You do other things. You force him into a corner, right, where he doesn't have a choice. That's bad. That's why, a lot of Rabbanim are against this, this law in New York. You can force them. You can't, right? It could be, there have been people trying to change the language, this and that. So I heard a great rabbi say there, the other Orthodox community is also working on such a thing. They're also working on the language of it. But you got to be careful with the language to make sure it doesn't smell of anything that's going to be a forced bill of divorce. Now, feminists will take tremendous issue to this. And they'll say, that's not fair. Why should a woman not be able to get married because this guy's fill in the blank? You're right. The guy's doing the wrong thing. He's abusing the system. Okay? Right? But, you can't turn you can't turn Jewish law into silly putty. You can't turn it into a pretzel. Just because it doesn't fit your world outlook. Again, so you can go eat cocoa, you don't like it. Okay. So you try and work around it the best you can. But the system's set up for a reason. And it makes perfect sense. Perfect sense. Right? And this is the guy talking. It makes perfect sense. Because he's got all the power. He's got all the power over here. But, there are plenty of people today, in the modern Orthodox community, many of them don't want to get married. Too busy having fun. That's wrong. But they don't want to get married. But, so you got these women, there are more men than women. So women have, difficulty, meeting somebody. But the men not interested in getting married. Why not? Because it's hard for a guy to commit. I'm not saying things happen to him. It's just, in general, it's a big commitment. Like Rav Victor Miller once said, a blessed memory, when Torah Giants of the last generation, said, how do you break up a great romance? Get married. Why? Because that means the person has commitment. Everything else you're doing, all for fun over here. Guys having a great time, right? No obligations, can walk out whenever he wants, so to speak. It's nothing keeping him there. He's got a document. Oh, it's a little bit different. Not gonna say it's gonna be the ultimate thing, but now it's a little bit different. Right? Now he's got obligations. Right? For Noahide, it's a whole different thing. By Noahide, they live together, common law marriage. Right? We've spoken about before. You live together, that's considered marriage. Now, I've gotten this question a number of times. Do Noahides have to get married, do it legally? No. If they don't want to, they don't have to. Maybe it's beneficial for tax reasons, other things. Could very well be, but obligation according to Torah, no. The Rambam says they live together. They're living for the sake of marriage, right? So then that's marriage. They dissolve it. One of them walks away, so that's divorce. They don't need anything formal, per se. The question is, the question is that there was a case I mentioned before with William Hurt many years ago. 20 years ago, more. He was living with someone, had a few kids, and he left. And she claimed she wanted to have his money. And he said, "We're gonna have half my money. I'm not giving you half my money. Give you some. I'm not giving you half." Right. So there's a question, in the States, and certain states have on the books common law marriage. That's what she claimed. Now, as a Noahide, she's got a claim. Essentially, she got a claim. Right? She got a claim that's like marriage. You weren't just there fooling around, it was marriage. Right? So if it's for the sake of marriage, that's what it looks like. So then, yeah. So then he's got obligations. Well, I think it came out, he had to pay, but he didn't have to pay half. I think he didn't end up giving up half, but common law marriage, first of all, is not in every state. Definitely not in every state. But as a non-Jew, that's what it is. Right? You live together, fine. A person wants to do it legally, they can. There's nothing wrong with it. They want to make up a document of this and that they can do that. Right? Again, there's no obligation over here. But seemingly, if they live together, that's enough. They don't have to do anything else. If they want to, again, they want to get married under canopy, they could. Nothing wrong with that. Per se, you're not gonna have a marriage document like a Jew, but okay. They think, they're Noahides, take on the Noahide laws. Okay. They don't have to go beyond that. They don't have to go beyond it. Much easier. Much easier in that sense. They live together, fine. They leave. One of them leaves, okay, that's considered divorce. Right? But the point is, when it comes to Jewish marriage, so the one that's got the more difficult parts of committing over here, he's going to be the one to break it. Now, that makes perfect sense logically. Logically, I don't think anyone disagrees. Right? Men, in general, have a harder time committing than women. That's just the nature of us. Right? So if that's true, then it makes perfect sense why he has to break it. But again, people are going to jump up and down and say, hey, a woman could get messed up in the process. What if he doesn't want to give a bill of divorce? You're right. Right? 100%. That could happen. Okay. So there are some ways around it. And if this doesn't work, she can be a chained woman. She can be stuck. She can be someone who can't get remarried. I'll take it one step further. There was a case happened many years ago. Husband got divorced. And basically, he tells his daughter, I betrothed you to somebody. But I'm not telling you who, and I did it in front of witnesses. Did it in front of 2 witnesses. Now, what does that mean? Practically speaking, she can't marry anybody. He just basically forbade her to marry anybody because he said in front of 2 witnesses. Now, you could say, well, how do you know he's not lying? Maybe he's lying, right? But he made this statement. You don't know who the witnesses are. So I came up with a great idea. Beat this guy to an inch of his life. Bring a few guys in, rough him up, and then tell him to speak. Then tell him to give over the information. Right? So can't do that either. Why not? Because you don't know he's telling the truth. Maybe he's going to say anyone's name, but you don't know. You can't know for sure. He's under duress. Right? He's in pain over here. He's under duress. Say anything. Save his life. You can't, So maybe you could do that. Can't do that. So this woman comes to my Rebbe and asks him, what am I supposed to do? What can I do over here? The only thing he could do with it was cry. That's all he could do. He said, we can't do anything. He couldn't find any way out of it. And this person totally abused the system. Something never should ever be done. We're so wise. So we say, we can do things and make, unbelievable, horrific ramifications. This guy didn't care. He did it despite his wife. That's why he did it. Despite his daughter. There's no way out. Such a situation, you're stuck. Yeah, think about this way, that way, the other way. They didn't come up with a solution. So this person, as far as I know, never got married. Right? I think that's the end of the story. And the story is they never found it. I don't know if the guy's still alive or not. But it's worse if he dies. If he dies, then she's stuck forever. Once he made this, you gotta say, how do you know he's telling the truth? Because he made that statement. He made a statement, I said in front of two witnesses. You have to bring a proof that he's lying. Right? You got no proof that he's lying over here. So you got to assume he's telling the truth. So you get a person like that, totally messed up this girl, totally messed up his daughter. You're going to say the system's not fair. There are things within the system. Yeah. All things being equal, it works 99% of the time, 100% of the time. Someone wants to mess it up because they find loopholes and this and that, maybe. But what do? We have precedent. We have things, that can't be changed. If you don't have precedent or whatever. I'll give another example. This is another horrific example. Rabbi tells me the following story. He had a woman come to him. This woman was married, and her husband disappeared. Disappeared off the face of the map. And she went to certain rabbinical court. They searched for this guy, left, right. They assumed this guy was dead. And that was the assumption. Right? He totally disappeared off the face of the map. So I don't know what the case was in all the criteria, right? But this rabbinical court allowed her to remarry based on the evidence she gave. Okay. What happened? She remarries. She has kids. It's a religious woman. She has kids. All her kids are religious, got grandkids. 25 years later, the ex-husband shows up. 25 years later, this guy shows up. Again, I don't know what happened with the rabbinical court. They made a serious mistake. Serious mistake. All these kids now are mamzerim. Because she's not really divorced. This guy's not dead. Right? So she's not divorced. He's still alive. She marries somebody. She marries someone on the pretense he's dead or whatever the case was. She didn't get divorced. He's not dead. These are children that, you have to uproot all these marriages. All these kids are mamzerim. It's a forbidden relationship. She's not allowed to be with her husband. Because this guy showed up. Right? There's no bill of divorce, no nothing. So this person came in front of my Rebbe and said, what do I do? What am I supposed to do now? So my Rebbe's telling me the story. He said, I'm still working on it. I'm still working on this case. Trying to find, some way out of it. To me, which, means nothing. But to me, I'm like, what are you talking about? It's open and shut case. Black and white. Like, where in the world are you going to find some permissibility somewhere? It's like, I'm working on it. It's like, don't bother me. I'm working on it. Okay? A few weeks later, I asked him, so what happened with this case? I said, did you find some permissibility? And he said, no. He said, the way it came out for me is that you have to uproot all these marriages. All these people married, all this women's children, they have to uproot all the marriages. They're all mums there. He said, but I sent the question to Rabbi Yashiv. He was considered the Poisei Gadol, greatest rabbi of that generation. He said, I'm not going to uproot the marriage. I sent it to him. I never heard what happened in the end. Right? If he found any permissibility or not. But Rabbi didn't find any permissibility. Now, let's look at the case a little bit. Obviously, the base in the rabbinical courts that allowed this person to remarry had criteria. They had criteria why she's allowed to get married. So the question is, okay, they made a mistake, a serious mistake. The mistake came out, and now all these marriages have to be uprooted. Right? So seemingly every time this woman was with her husband, it's a Torah prohibition. So whose fault is that? It's Basin's fault. She was in the Basin. She got messed up. right? Through the base that made a serious mistake. Can happen. Definitely can happen. Talmud talks about cases. Many cases. That's, the question is, what's the level of liability? Is the if the liability is on the base, then okay, so if they made a serious mistake, they have to pay, or whatever the ramifications for their mistake are. Depends what level of base, and also, it depends what the mistake was, right? And the laws of judges, which I was learning up north last year, the laws of judges, this is a whole humongous case. It's a huge, huge case over here. What's going on? Who are these rabbis that made the mistake? Right? Did one of them at least, seriously know what they were doing, or all three of them, or, whatever the case was, also a question, what was the mistake? Was the mistake in something explicit? They missed, an explicit Mishnah, let's say, or a Gemara, or was a mistake and they made a mistake how we hold? Right? In other words, there are two opinions. They held according to the wrong opinion. So that is less egregious. But if they made a mistake on something that was explicit, come on, they're going to throw the book at them. They're going to say, how'd you miss something explicit? Right? So there's different ramifications. Let's just say for argument's sake, it's extremely complex. Spent weeks going through this. It's extremely complex on what all the different sides are and how it comes out. And it's complex. Right? So depends what level they're on. It depends on what the mistake was, but here, not a monetary mistake. This is a mistake in marriage, where marriages have to be uprooted. Right? She's not allowed to be with her husband. And all her kids are all mabzerim. Right? They can only marry people of the same union. Right? That's who they can marry. Can't marry anybody else. Right? They're stuck. Now again, is it the person's fault? They listen to the base. Normally we're going to say, you don't make a mistake, listen to a base. It's their responsibility. True. 100% it's their responsibility. But what's the problem? The problem is this woman can't be married to this husband. Can't be married. Got to be uprooted. All the kids are mamzerim. Who can they marry? Only someone of a similar union or a convert. They can't be married to who they're married to. Right? So someone asked, what about the first husband? Yeah, there's judgment on him also. He doesn't get off scot-free. Right? But yeah, he disappeared. 100% he disappeared. He can't do whatever he wants. He's also got liability over here. He messed the whole thing up. But even so, there's a whole nother thing going on over here. You're right. He messed it up. 100% he messed it up. So we got to understand, even if he messed it up, there are ramifications. There are ramifications for the decision that the Beis Din did. So if the Beis Din would have had heavenly out, they wouldn't have made such a mistake. But they didn't. Again, I don't know all the details, or very many of the details. What made them make that decision? They're assuming after checking things out, this guy was dead. That's what the assumption was. He's no longer alive. It's not like, maybe they found, went on his boat, they found like his shirt and some other things of his in possession, and the boat is, going around in circles, but he can't be found. Right? So something like that, probably we can assume he drowned. Right? Yeah, I mean, you need other factors also, but you can probably assume in this case he drowned. This person also is liable. It's true. He's going to pay the price also in other ways. But the issue is the Beis Din made a ruling They made a ruling based on whatever their criteria was. And now they messed up all these people. So based on certainly liable. That doesn't mean the other person gets off the hook. He's not off the hook. He's not off the hook. He's in trouble. Right? Because through him, it was this thing was, this thing was caused. Right? But what could he make as a claim? Let's think about this. What could he make as a claim? Because you're right, I disappeared. I fell off the grid, so to speak. For whatever reason, doesn't matter. So why did Basin allow to remarry? So you're going to say, didn't they have criteria? They had criteria. You gotta know what you're doing in such a case. You gotta have big shoulders over here to know what to do. These are not, 5-minute answers. They're not 10-minute answers. It takes hours and days and weeks to verify. Just like, by 9/11, in order to permit women to remarry, they had to have evidence, that their spouse was there at the time. They saw him come in, right? Checked in, whatever. They had to have some level of evidence that he was there in order for her to remarry. Because he disappeared. He didn't come back. He didn't call nothing. Disappeared. You're going to say, well, maybe he could have come out some other way. So they had to verify. There was criteria. He went in, he clocked in, he was there. They can show that he was there. That's enough. Maybe it depends on what floor, whatever, but there was criteria. This basin made a serious mistake. Serious mistake. But it could be, what's their claim? What would they claim? Their claim, according to what we saw, and according to the criteria, and everything we looked at, this guy was dead. This guy was off the face of the map, and he wasn't coming back. Totally disappeared. So they assumed, based on that he was basically dead. That's the assumption. So again, I don't know everything they looked into or half the things or whatever. They made a mistake, right? And what's this guy going to claim? He's going to say, right, I was off the grid. I totally disappeared, right? You didn't find me. Did you try and find me? I hid very well, right? You don't think he's going to be liable? Of course he's going to be liable. Of course he's going to be liable. Well, let's look at it in the bigger scheme of things. Couldn't God have made it that Basin would have said she's not allowed to get married? 100%. They could have said you're not allowed to get married, right? We don't have enough evidence, whatever. You can't get married, right? You can't get remarried because, this guy might show up. So, in the bigger scheme of things, isn't it true? Okay, so this woman, has a bunch of children, with this guy. These children, have other children. They say, look, these people came into the world. Okay, they came into the world as mamzerim. Certainly blemished, no question, but they came into the world. Couldn't God have stopped it? Could have. God could have stopped it. He could have nipped it in the bud and said, no, you can't get married. Right? Yeah, and she went from one basin to another. They all said no. They said, no, you're not allowed to get married. We don't have enough evidence. Let's say. Then you don't have this problem. You don't have these kids coming into the world the way they came in. So God did not stop it. So now let's think. Why didn't God stop it? Why did God want these souls to be in the world? Don't know. I don't have a good answer. I don't have a bad answer. Right? We don't know. But obviously he wanted these souls into the world, because if not, he would have stopped it. I'll give another example. Right? Yaakov marries Rachel. When Yaakov marries Rachel, he told her, or let's say better, she told him, my father's a big swindler. You have to be absolutely careful. He can swindle you, this, that, and the other way. So what did Yaakov Avinu say? He said, I'm not worried about it. Who was the best swindler of our time? My brother. And I swindled him. And I beat him. I'm not worried about your father. So what happened? So Rachel, gave him the signs that were only between him and her. That only he knew. Right? That only he knew and she knew. But not to embarrass her sister. He gave her the sign and he married Leah. So he woke up in the morning and he sees it's Leah. Now what's the problem? So Rebbe asks the following question. He says, how's it got to be married to her? When a person marries another person, right? When a man marries a woman, under the chuppah, under the canopy, he gives her a ring. And he says, you are sanctified to me, Kedas Moshe Yisrael, right? Like the law of Moses and the Jewish people. So she is consecrated to him, he's consecrated to her. He has to have intention for her, nobody else. Now what happens? He had intention for Rachel. He wakes up, he sees it's Leah. How can he be married to her? He never had intention for Leah. Right? He had no intention for Leah. If he didn't have intention for Leah, how can he be married to her? Right? So my Rebbe answers, he saw that he did everything in his power not to get swindled, not to get messed up over. Every last thing. He made sure there's no way that his father-in-law is going to swindle him. So what happened? He got swindled by his own wife. He got swindled by Rachel. Something he never thought about. I don't think he dreamed in a million years she's going to give the signs to Leah. Never. And then he starts yelling at Lavan, what are you doing? How could you swindle me? And he says, what are you talking about? We don't do that in this place. You marry the older one first. But so how can you stay married to her? If you don't have intention for the person you marry, it's not a marriage. You have intention for someone else. Right? Totally intention for someone else. So Rebbe says, he saw through Ruach HaKodesh, divine inspiration, that the Jewish people were supposed to be built up through Leah also. And because it's supposed to be built up through Leah, okay? Even though really they kept the entire Torah before it was given, so how can he be married to it? How can he marry two sisters? Also forbidden, right? It took him another 7 years to marry Rachel. So when they come into Israel and they're held to a higher standard, Rachel dies. Right? So that's a whole discussion of itself. But the point is he saw that this, in the bigger picture, this is what it's supposed to be. Because if he got swindled, and he did everything in his power to make sure it's never going to happen. His wife to be, Rachel, swindled him. He never, he thinks Rachel's going to do it? Come on. Wouldn't have thought about it in a million years. For 7 years, he worked for Rachel. You think she's going to swindle and give her Leah? Come on. Never dawned on him. But he saw that because of all this, he saw that the Jewish people were destined to come out through her also. So that's why, so Rebbe says that's why he's allowed to stay married to her. So if that's true, then the action that he did, and he tried to protect himself and he got messed up, it's because there's a bigger picture. There's the bigger picture. Now, in this case, okay, this is a little bit different. This is building the Jewish people, right? So that might be a different case. In our case, where this person gets married, right? This person gets married, and the rabbinical court messed her up and didn't do their investigation properly or whatever it was. In the bigger scheme of things, these kids are born. They might be blemished, they might have to get divorced, but these souls came into the world. That's the bigger picture. You don't put them to death. They're going to live. They're going to be, they're really messed up over here, but God did not stop it. So if he didn't stop it, there's a purpose of them being in the world. This whole thing happening. Why? The only thing I can say is probably has to do with what their soul had to go through. It has to do with reincarnation and bringing these souls out for whatever reason. the only explanation I have. I don't have any other explanation. Or you could say, well, it was one big mistake. All these people totally messed up, and that's it. But God doesn't make mistakes. Everything's calculated. Everything is measure for measure. Right? So if that's true, so yeah, there's a bigger picture we don't see. But we have to deal with the picture we have in front of us. And the picture is Basin made a serious mistake. Serious mistake. But don't think, the perpetrator behind this thing, this guy who disappeared for 25 years, he's not liable. He's also liable. He messed the whole thing up. Right? Basin can't say, well, he messed us up. They made a mistake. They gave over Jewish law, made a mistake. Maybe he was the greatest hider of all times. Maybe it's right under their nose. They couldn't find it. They didn't see it. Whatever. Or decided, went on a boat. It was halfway around the world. They had no idea where he was. Couldn't track him. They assume he died. So this guy was, greatest scoundrel of all time. One of them. And he seriously messed up everybody. Messed up the Basin, messed up the people, messed up everything over here. He's lying. Right? But what could he claim? It's not going to be a good claim, but what could he say? What would his defense be? Part of his defense. He can say, you're right, I disappeared. Couldn't find me. How could Basin allow you to be remarried? Based on the fact I wasn't around. Now again, the onus is on Basin. They'll say, based on the evidence, we assumed he was dead. But he can say, they made the mistake. I wasn't, I'm alive and kicking. I wasn't dead over here. They're the ones that made the mistake. Yeah, they're going to throw that out of court. He doesn't have a claim. Just because they couldn't find him and they made a mistake doesn't mean what he did was right. He's certainly going to pay the price. But you have to remember one thing. There are repercussions for everything we do. And they can be serious repercussions. Serious repercussions. You want to tell me all these families that now have to be uprooted, their lives have just been turned upside down overnight. Overnight. Totally messed up now. So, all the way through. She can't be married to her husband. All these families cannot be married. You have to break up all these families. Mind-boggling. Right? This guy can't do whatever he wants. He's liable. He's for sure liable. Right? I'm just going on the side of, whatever the criteria of the Basin was. He doesn't get a free pass. Certainly doesn't get a free pass. But because of what he did caused this to happen. He's the perpetrator. He caused it to happen. Right? Right? So the question is, right? You're not going to jail. Yeah, but the person's going to be totally ostracized. After this whole thing. He ain't going to come out smelling like a rose. He's ruined. This guy's reputation totally ruined. Doesn't have to go to jail. Story gets out. He's finished. Right? Doesn't matter what he does. Doesn't matter if he doesn't suffer in jail or gets a death penalty or anything else. His life is ruined because he caused it. They're gonna put this guy under a microscope. You think this guy gets a free pass? He doesn't get a free pass. His life is over. Yeah, he hid for a long time. He's gonna go back in the hole that he crawled in before. Yeah, could be. Could be maybe, his damage is going to have to pay. You got embarrassment over here. Your family's uprooted. Yeah, a lot of things he's going to have to pay. He could be liable for. But I would say that, the thing that's caused through him, word's going to get out. There's not something that's going to be quiet over here or pushed under the carpet. This thing's going to get out that this whole family now are going to see, families getting divorced, this and that. Word's going to get out. Word's going to leak. For better or for worse. Right? But for this guy, it's going to be like hell in this world. Right? Unless he's got such a big ego, he doesn't care. He doesn't care. His reputation is, his reputation's ruined. He disappeared for 25 years. So he'll go disappear again. Right? But I would think once it all hits the fan, he's going to be made known what he did. And he can blame the base then. They should have checked this, should have checked that, should have done the other thing. He's going to try. He's finished. They're going to ruin him. His reputation's finished. Right? That's the price. That's pretty, maybe he doesn't care. Maybe you tell me, well, he doesn't care. So, he doesn't care. So it doesn't matter. I would not necessarily say that. I think this guy's reputation is going to be toast. Now, the only question is, does he care about it? He came back, right? 100% he came back over here. The question is why he came back. Okay. Yeah. But he came back. He got slaughtered. The whole community going to ostracize him. You're not going to find, unless he goes to Timbuktu somewhere, middle of nowhere where nobody knows him. That could be. Just go, some community plant himself there and make up his name, this, that, and, live happily ever after. But the Jewish community will flatten him like a pancake. Absolute pancake. Put up signs, this, that, ruin him. Totally ruin him, whatever's left of him. So he doesn't pay a monetary price. He'll pay in other ways. He'll definitely pay in other ways. But, could they sue him for damages? Probably. They could definitely get him for that. The embarrassment, other things, sure. He definitely could be liable. But I'm saying even if he's not, I would think, unless this guy's got an ego the size of who knows what, and he doesn't care about anything, which it could be he doesn't, right? But the Jewish community is not going to sit still, not going to be quiet over here. They're going to put up signs, they're going to put all kinds of things against this guy. And whatever reputation he's got left is gone. It's gone. So it would have been better if he never came back. Because if he never would have come back, okay, then I think he's dead, finished. Now he's going to probably wish he was dead. Right? Yeah, they're going to expose him, totally expose him. And they should. That's not Lashon Hara, that this person should be totally exposed. This other person, by the way, who messed up his daughter and refused to say who the witnesses were. You think this person, was you can say he didn't care and despite his wife and this and that. You think this person had an easy life? He was dogged by all kinds of people, in Jewish communities. Went from one place to another. They excommunicated him. He couldn't pray in a lot of places. They say, okay, that doesn't mean a lot today. True. But you think this guy had an easy life after that? He didn't have an easy life. People were dogging him left and right. Imagine, I'll give an example. Imagine, a person, owes credit card money. So after a certain amount of time, credit cards companies stop calling. They send out to an agency. And these agencies are like pit bulls because they want a commission, right? They want to make a commission of all the credit card money you owe, right? All this debt that you owe. So they'll call you 100 times, 1,000 times. It doesn't work through them. They'll go through someone else, right? They'll change numbers, private numbers, this, that. They'll do what they can to get whatever they can out of the person, right? Anyone who's ever been dogged by credit card companies, they know what it is. Or dogged by anybody for that matter. Credit card companies are notorious. They're totally notorious. Do whatever they can to get the money back. Or I understand. It's their money. But anyone who's ever been dogged by them, it's not a pleasant experience. They're like a pit bull. So you can say, I'll turn my phone off, this and that. It's constant. It's constant, daily basis. That's what they're set up to do because they want to get a commission. Even if a person agrees, so fine. They finally answer the phone. Months later, they answer the phone and say, fine, I have $5,000. I'll pay you one. Take it now. Take it or leave it. Otherwise they can't do anything. There's nothing they can do. After a certain amount of time, right? In certain states, 5 years, 6 years, whatever it is, after that amount of time, they can't call you anymore. And if they do, you can prosecute them, technically, right? It's illegal for them, but they're going to do whatever it takes. So I'm not so sure people want to be on the receiving end of that and be dogged left and right. People in your face. Forget on the phone. People in your face. That's what they do. They'll put people in this guy's face day in and day out, trying to convince them, to say, to do what he's supposed to do. Same thing by giving a get. If he doesn't give a bill of divorce, put all kinds of pressure, a lot of pressure. So, a person can be stubborn. They just don't care. It doesn't affect them. But yeah, it gets under the skin after a while. People don't speak to them. They get ostracized. So you say, fine, they'll pick up and move. They'll go somewhere else. Okay. Right. And it's not pleasant. They don't go through a pleasant experience. So I can only imagine this guy comes back. They'll drag him into court. Or, they'll get him, whatever. And if not, they're going to plaster his name all over the place. Say what this guy did. It's true. The rabbinical court made the mistake. It's all true. Right. And they're going to, they get a lot of the liability here. But if this guy shows up, you think he's not getting anything? He's getting. He's going to get his reputation gonzo, right? It's not his reputation is dead. He's already, they think he's alive. They think he's alive. He's got no reputation. He was dead. Now he comes back. Sounds like a bad movie. Sounds like Dallas, right? Guy comes back in a dream, right? Or whatever, right? He comes back. So he didn't exist before. Now he exists. Now he's on the map. Now he's on the grid. Before he flies out of town, they plaster him. He had it much easier when they thought he was dead. Much easier. Nobody knew anything. What happened to this guy? Very good. He had a whole secret life. He had a whole different life. Fine. But now he comes back. Now he opens his mouth and they catch him. He might not be going to jail, but guess what? Whole thing comes out. So he'll go back under the rock that he came on. Okay, but his reputation's gone. The only reason his reputation was dead is because he was dead. He was considered dead. Okay. So no one knows where he is. Out of mind, out of sight. Now he comes back. This whole thing comes out. So you could say, you're right. Maybe no one's going to care. All right, maybe he's not going to care. And it doesn't matter. Right? That could be. That could be. But God will take care of him. Right? That's not an issue. I'm thinking that someone does not want to go through that. Unless they got the biggest ego in the world and they just, push everything aside and it doesn't care. It'll grind on them. No one wants to hear bad things about them. Even with someone with the biggest ego, they don't want to hear bad things against them. There are people trashing them, going on to Twitter and other things and trashing. They don't want that. I mean, you got some people that are so defiant they don't care, but I think it's because they might be bipolar or other things, right? It's just ironic, this whole thing with Kanye West is whatever. He's bipolar also, right? It's something that's known, but he just keeps coming, which makes no sense at all. It's one thing, okay, you got caught, you lost a lot of money now, all these endorsements gone, but he doesn't stop. Why doesn't he stop? So either he's an idiot, he's a fruitcake, bipolar, that could be part of it, right? He's getting trashed all over the place. So what happened? Either the guy's the biggest fool in the world, or he doesn't care. He doesn't care. But I think when it hits his pocket, he's not gonna be worth as much. You say he'd still be worth millions, true, right? He's not worth as much now. He lost everything. Now his reputation shredded, totally shredded, more than it's been ever shredded before, probably. Not that I'm up to date on all this stuff, but that's my assumption, right? So he just keeps coming back. That's mind-boggling. It's mind-boggling. Totally defended him. I don't think he did anything wrong. Totally doesn't think anything wrong. Another thing comes out with a basketball player says something. Endorses a book that's totally anti-Semitic. Like, no, I read it. It's not really that. Or he never, maybe didn't. He didn't read it. That's what they said. He didn't read it, and he claimed it wasn't, and everyone else claims it is, and whatever. People say things, you got to be careful. And when it comes to making money, and you're worth a lot of money, and you got endorsements, and you slip up something like this, you lose everything overnight. Certain athletes got nailed doing something, that was it. They never played another game. They didn't play another game. Someone up for, a big payday, did something in the off season, finished, totally finished. Reputation's worth something. Not worth nothing. See, tell me, well, he didn't have a reputation before. He was dead. He was dead. So now he comes back. Now he comes back, it all comes out. So you're going to say he's going to run away pretty quick. Could be. But he's finished. Unless he changes his name, he's got an alias or whatever, and he's able to survive that way. If not, his reputation is flushed down the toilet. Flushed. Now, this other guy still got plenty of money, but he lost a lot. We'll see if they come back, see what happens in the end. But, I don't think he's too happy his reputation's shredded. Why? Because he's losing money. If he's losing a ton of money, that's going to bother. That's going to hit him in the pocket. That is going to bother a person. Reputation, you think he really cares? You really think, in his heart of hearts, that he really feels bad what he said. I don't think he feels bad. Let him say it. I don't think he feels bad. That's what he thinks. I mean, he said all kinds of other crazy things also. That's what he thinks. When a person, keep in mind one thing. I mentioned this before when did Pirkei Avos a long time ago. When last year, when a basketball player was live streaming, video game, and he made an anti-Semitic statement. Anyway, the NBA shut him down. They forwarded his contract for the rest of the year. He wasn't playing anyway. He was injured or whatever. But he made a statement. He said an anti-Semitic thing. So you can say, slip of the tongue. So we don't believe in slip of the tongue. We believe what a person thinks is part of them. Whether you like it or not, it's part of you unless you fight very hard to get rid of it. So he said something that he shouldn't have said. True. Right? Very true. He shouldn't have said it. Why did he say it? See, we don't believe in slip of the tongue. We believe that when a person thinks something, it becomes part of their psyche. Now, it can be buried in your psyche. 100% it could be buried for years. For years. And all of a sudden, out of nowhere, it comes out. It doesn't come out by mistake. It doesn't come out as a slip of the tongue. Yeah, it was a slip of the tongue. Right? But that's what you think. Why? Because when you think something, it goes into your heart. When it goes into your heart, it becomes part of your psyche. So you got to work hard. Even if it's a bad thing, you got to work hard to get it out of your brain. Right? Like images, a person seeing. You have to get out of your head. Because if you don't get them out of your head, they're there. Even if you work very hard, they're still there somewhere. They're still somewhere wired in. Right? So, Julian Edelman will throw him under the bus also, says, this guy makes his anti-Semitic statement. Says, listen, I'm in Florida a lot. He comes down, we'll have Friday night dinner. We'll have Shabbos dinner. It's like, oh, that's great. Don't know anything about Shabbos, not even Jewish, because his father's Jewish, but okay. So, imagine he's gonna serve him dinner. He's gonna serve him chicken and matzo balls. He's gonna serve him soup. Beautiful. Oh yeah, I love the Jews. And how could I have said such a thing? They're not gonna do anything, not bringing them closer. For goodness sake, that's part of his system. Once it's part of your system, it's only a question when it comes out. Maybe, again, it could be dormant for 30 years. It could be dormant for 5 years. Doesn't matter. It's there. Right? It's there. A person could have seen something 20 years ago, 30 years ago. Bring up, someone brings up some certain memory or whatever, boom, it comes out like that. But you haven't thought about it in 20 years. You haven't thought about it in 10 years, whatever it is. But it's there. You didn't forget it, didn't disappear. So it's part of your psyche. So when a person says something, yeah, it could be they shouldn't have said it. And they should have thought more carefully when they said it. True. Doesn't mean they didn't mean it. Because when you think something, it becomes part of you. When it becomes part of you, it's there. So you can only say, well, I didn't mean to say it. Yeah, very good. Very good, but it came out. And it wasn't just something you thought about yesterday. This thing, will just throw this out there as well. This thing with what Whoopi Goldberg said last year. Same thing. You don't think she still believes it? Oh, she still believes it. She backtracked, but she still believes it. I don't think there's any question about it. I understand where it came from. Doesn't matter. Still, I'm saying it's still an anti-Semitic thing. There's no question. She's still defiant. And people say, why make such a big deal about it? He took her off for 2 weeks and this and that. Yeah, you can't make statements like that. But she's still defiant. Deep down, does she think she did anything wrong? Absolutely not. Until she got blown up on Twitter. That's a different issue. And thousands of people blasting her, totally blasting her, and then her show had no choice. They had to take her off for a certain amount of time. She go to any classes and learn about this, and no, nothing happened. You think anything changed? I don't think anything changed. She still believes it. I understand where it comes from, but still, it's still wrong. 100% it's wrong. But see, when it comes, there are 2 things here. It can build up over a lifetime, years and years. Build up a reputation can be gone in 1 second. Person makes the wrong statement, or it's not politically correct, they get wiped off the face of the map. Right? Give you another example. Anyone knows what Jimmy the Greek is? Jimmy the Greek used to be on what do you call it? Football commentator, right? For one of the networks. He made a comment about blacks that maybe is a true statement, but definitely looked at as a racist statement. That was it. Years and years of doing the show, whatever, why gone overnight. Now again, even if the statement is true, it's not politically correct to say, finished. Destroy his reputation. That's it. Reputation's worth something, but there's another factor. Reputation goes with money. And when money's taken out of your pocket, you're going to be a little more ticked off. A lot more ticked off. Because, who are they right to say this, that, and the other thing? I can say what I want. Yeah. It's going to make us look bad. We're going to take back our endorsements. That's going to hit a person in the pocket. That's a much more serious thing. But ruining someone's reputation, someone is out there, someone, people see on a regular basis, that's a pretty serious thing. And that's not a small thing over here. Now, you can tell me in this case, this guy doesn't care because he doesn't have a reputation anyway. Could be. Right? But if they blow him up, and then, if they plaster his name all over the place and word gets out, he's not dead. His reputation he's going to be dead now. His only reputation will be dead. So I have to go back and hide him where he went before. But that's also a serious price. He now comes back among the living. It was like, wow, we know you're alive. It's unbelievable. Whatever. And then this whole scandal comes out. What do you think is going to happen? He's just going to sit there and say, I don't care. It's their fault. They made the mistake. Yeah, he can blame them. 100% he can blame them. His reputation going to be wiped. Wiped. If not, the fact he's got to pay damage is another thing. He'll pay. He'll definitely pay a price. If not one way, both ways. Right? Well, people are stupid in general. Especially, the more famous a person is, the less think they're liable for anything. What they say, especially, saying things against Jews. It's unbelievable. If we make some statements that people make against us, we say against blacks, forget it. We'd be tarred and feathered. We'd be lynched. They make statements like that, and against Jews. Okay, so now it's a big thing against, and Jews have quite a bit of power and say, and this and that. It's true. It's true. But people think they're invincible. People think I can say what I want, I can do what I want. Yeah, but it can come back not only to bite you, take money out of your pocket. Right? Reputation's worth a lot. Especially if someone is, especially if someone's famous. But even if you're not famous, if your reputation's ruined, I just read a few articles, depressing articles, but a few articles of, people going through horrendous times. One was about a woman married to a guy who got caught money laundering. Guy going to jail. Family not only devastated, destroyed. The person said, well, they have who their real friends are, but Everyone's talking about it. The kids are embarrassed, like no tomorrow. The person got nailed for fraud and wife's distraught. How can you do it? How can you put their, lives in danger, for the rest of their lives? Look what's going to happen over here. This guy's going to jail for X number, for however many years. Family got ruined. Totally ruined. Reputation's worth a lot. Right? Or someone whose son or child, goes off. There are also a lot of ramifications. Also embarrassing. See other kids pretty much doing the right thing, and this guy's got long hair and does whatever, and it's embarrassing, right? There are ways to deal with it, okay, but it's reputation. Oh, look at this family, long line of great people, this and that, and, look at this kid. It's a bum. Looks like a bum. With the way he dresses, look what they do. That's a reputation. Or what about someone who suffers from mental illness? There's another story, pretty depressing also. Right? Another story of a child, 16-year-old, commits suicide. And how that affects. It could be the best family, but this kid didn't get what they needed. And they felt that was the only way to do it. It's tragic. All three are tragic in many ways. But at the same time, no matter how you slice it, the reflection on the family. You're going to say it could be the best family. It could be. It could very well be. But certain things happen that, you can say, well, beyond your control. You did the best. The kid didn't get what they needed, whatever the case is. You get blamed. We parents get blamed. You're going to say, but the power of the street, it wasn't your fault, and this, you tried that, you tried that. You're right. You tried a million different things. And the kid didn't want, and it failed. And it failed in many ways. Okay? Right? That's not an embarrassment to the family? Of course it is. You can say, but each one has to carve out their own place. You're right. Within a framework. But if they're not within a framework, they stick out. They stick out in a major way. So today, unfortunately, probably most families have, at least one child that's, is weaker spiritually than others. At least one. It can happen. It's still not bad statistics per se, but you don't want anyone going on. But who's the reflection on the most? It's on the parents. They're responsible. But you're going to say, but you weren't, how can you be responsible for everything? Okay, you got to do the best of your ability. But essentially, it's on their plate. Now, there could be onus, could be other things happen that you weren't in control of 100%, but, you get blamed for the good, get blamed for the bad. A lot of things, but reputation is not something to sneeze at. Person's reputation can get flushed. You can't say, well, blame, how can you blame the whole family? This one kid had different issues, and even if they had mental issues and they've been, in therapy and this and that, and this is what happened in the end. Mental illness is a serious thing. And not necessarily anything to do with the parents. Parents can be the best people. Could be the greatest people spiritually. Mental illness is a real thing. Definitely a real thing. And people do things under mental illness, not under mental illness. People under pressure to do things that they shouldn't do, and then they get caught in whatever. A lot of things. There are a lot of things, but again, reputation. Even if this, again, back to this case, even if this guy has no reputation, and he was dead, whatever happens to him now, right? And word gets out, his reputation's gone. You get, a person can say, I don't care what people say, this and that. Yeah, but he's got a life. He doesn't want to feel bad. Everyone thinks bad of him. Nobody wants that. A person would have to have the biggest ego in the world to say, let the people think what they want. They're not living in my shoes. They're not doing what I'm doing. That ego goes a long way over here. But, the people can have fragile egos. So, they don't want bad publicity. Bad publicity, put it in dollars and cents. It's bad. They don't want bad publicity. Nobody wants bad publicity, especially if it's going to cost them money. Now, this guy might not cost them anything, right? What's he going to lose? Oh, damages he could lose. They could definitely sue him for damages. I don't think there's any question about that. Yeah, they could definitely get him. He's not getting off scot-free, right? That's the bottom line. But again, I would say that reputation is worth something, worth a lot. Certainly the bigger the person is, the more successful they are in other ways. And even if they're not, nobody wants to have a bad reputation. Nobody. They want people to think good of them. They want people to pat them on the back. They whatever. People want what they want. They don't want negativity. They don't want bad publicity. And the higher up it goes, the worse it is. You get bad publicity, it's over. Right? Your career could be over. Different things. And for some people, what's the only thing they'll do? They'll be flipping burgers. What else can they do? They're finished. Can't do anything else. Let's say they've blown a lot of money. Now what? What are they going to do? Reputation, not a small thing. Somebody asks, how do we get right direction? Just like God says to Abraham, this week's parsha. God says, Lecha me'artzecha, right? You got to look into yourself, got to go out. Sorry, got to go out, place you don't know, right? What's the most important thing? What's the most important thing a person needs? Guidance, right? But a person has to be true to themselves. They have to know, deep inside, and this might, a person may need therapy for this. A person may have to dig deep inside to know what they really want. First of all, to know what's most important. So we know Torah is most important, right? And a person will do whatever it takes to acquire Torah, okay? Right? Just like the Mishnah Pirkei Avos says, say l'cha rav, you got to make for yourself someone a rabbi, right? Someone to teach you, someone to guide you. It could be someone who even knows a little bit more than you, right? It doesn't have to be someone, so well above, but a person needs guidance, direction. So, I have people many times will say, well, God's going to come to me. God's going to tell me. Okay. We don't believe in prophecy, right? Prophecy is either to little kids or imbeciles. We don't have prophecy today. The highest level of prophecy is what we call divine inspiration. So that we'll say for the few, the great righteous of the generation. Anyone else? No. So if that's the case, how do we get direction? So, a person has to figure out what direction they want to go. They have to figure out, what's most important. Right. So I think for most people, especially in the process of conversion, is I got to get to a community. Right. Somehow, somewhere, I have to get to a community. Right. That has to be the most important thing. Right. And that's the goal a person has to work at. Right. But at the same time, a person has to be constantly learning. And a person has to have goals. Right? It's also important. What does the person see themselves looking like in the next 5 years, in the next 10 years, right? Knowledge-wise, moving-wise, a lot of things. So a person has to plan. They have to see, what fits for them. Not everyone is a cookie cutter. Not everyone fits in the exact same thing. Right? Some people looking for a community like this or a community like that, or whatever. So it depends. So if a person in the process of conversion, most important thing is to get out of Dodge, which means you have to move to a community at some point. Right? That has to be the most important thing, and that's probably the hardest thing for most people. But that has to be done. Now, what do you want that community to look like? So it depends on you. What's the person looking for? What's their outlook? You have to sit down. And think. There are a lot of different factors. What community you want to fit in, who you want to be. Right? It's a basic question. Who do we want to be like? What are my goals? Person has to have goals. Even in learning, person has to have goals. Can't just, just going to learn this, learn that, and have no, finite goals over here. You want to accomplish something, right? So it can't be just learning for the sake of learning. That's good. It's got to be focused. So in any of these things, the person has to be focused, right? Where you want to live, where you want to be like, What's your ideal? You got to think, right? I can't answer that, right? It depends on what direction the person's going, and, again, what community they identify with, etc. There are people that fit a mold more Hasidish. They like to sing and dance a little bit more. Okay. They like the esoteric a little bit more. Okay. There are other people, much more, let's say, intellectual, even though it's more dry in a certain way. But they like that aspect. So that, there are a lot of different places a person can go. I can't answer that. It depends on, the makeup of the person and, where they see themselves fit in. So that being the case, a person has to think, okay, do I fit in this type of community, that type of community? Where are these communities that are near me? Right? But you have to go see them. You have to go check them out. You have to see it's a good fit or not. It's not, I'd say in certain ways it's trial and error. Right? But a person has to know what they want. Right? So, I can't answer that. The only thing I can say is person in this process wants Torah, more Torah, more Torah till they finish. Right? You got to do whatever it takes to get the finish line. For conversion, someone who's born a Jew, so they have to learn. They have to build themselves up. Right? And there's no end to learning. Or they're going to learn all day long, if they have the ability to. They have plenty what to learn. There's no shortage. Right? But you got to implement what you learn. Right? So, where a person fits in, that I can't answer. Right? That a person has to see for themselves. Right? Yeah. Can I give guidance? Yeah, I give guidance, on that because I've been, part of a number of different communities. I've seen what works and what doesn't work. But again, that's my own bias because of what I saw, what I went through. Someone would say, yeah, that's your opinion. Well, who else's opinion is it? Right? I went through it. I saw it. This is what I felt. Right? This is what I went through. The person can't say, no, you didn't go through that. I had someone tell me this once, many years ago. Well, that's your opinion. But I went through it. This is what I saw. You didn't go through what I went through. You didn't see what I went through. If you saw what I went through, okay. You want to disagree with, the way I put my spin on it, okay. We can have a discussion. But if you don't even know what apples and oranges are over here, you can't make a statement. Oh, that's your opinion. Well, I studied history in college, in university. You know what history is? His story. It's how people write it. Right? From different perspectives. Okay. You're right. It's my opinion. What's my opinion based on? What I saw. Oh, you didn't see that. Okay, it's a different issue. Did I see it or I didn't see it? You want to argue on that? You can argue on that. Right? I had someone tell me that. I said, but that's your opinion. I said, you're right. It's my opinion because I went through it. That's what I saw. That's what I continue to see. You're not telling me otherwise. You're just saying that's your opinion. Well, not really an argument, is it? But everyone has their own story. Everyone feels where they gravitate more. Yeah, some people, again, they gravitate more being Hasidish. Okay. Nothing wrong with it. You have to see where you fit in. Right? And then, you have to go check out things and see if this is what, person may think, oh, this is what I want. Then they see it's like, well, maybe not. It depends. It depends. So I can't answer that on one point. You have to look into yourself. You have to see what you yourself want. And you have to know what the repercussions are of certain things. Certain dress, other things. You have to see, but you have to see what's deep inside. It might help by making a list, saying, okay, these are my priorities. This is what I want. This is, etc. And then you got to see if it's practical to do. And you have to see if it works. It may not work for a person. Some people it might. It depends. I'm not gonna say all of it's trial and error. It's not. But I would say definitely, I would think some of it definitely is, and then it might not be exactly what you think. Right? It totally might not be what you think. Bottom line. but it doesn't matter. How are you going to find out otherwise? You're not going to find out otherwise. Let's keep in mind one thing. No one ever said this is easy. And if a person's an introvert, it's harder. Right? It's much harder. Right? But you got to start somewhere. You got to be, as Kaufman would say over here, you got to be proactive. 100%, you have to be proactive. If a person's not willing to be proactive, you're stuck. You're not going to find people that's going to hold you by the hand step by step. I mean, some might, but, a lot of research a person has to do on their own, and see. One other thing, I'll mention so we got sidetracked here. The story of Nebuzaradan, right? Why does the Holy of over here say? Why does he say over here? He's talking about the blood of Yom Kippur, right? So it mentions over here the story of Nebuzaradan, right? This butch is mentioned a number of places in the Talmud, and it says that this parochas, this covering of the ark, was brought to Rome. Right? Anyone's been to Rome and they've seen the Arch of Titus, which actually is forbidden to walk under for different reasons. But what does it show? It shows Titus taking the vessels of the temple. And obviously the Vatican's, we don't have them. They're not here. Well, some of them certainly in Israel, but it seems like a lot of them in the Vatican. Right? So, I heard Rebel Wine once say, if you do some, spring cleaning, you never know what you're going to find, those locked rooms down there. But there have been some rabbis been there, went undercover, so to speak, and saw, the vessels there. But regardless, it's brought down that the parochas, this covering of the ark, was brought to Rome. Right? Was brought to Rome. And on this covering, it had many drips of blood on it. So this rabbi asked, what is this? What is it? What are these drops of blood on this covering of the ark? And he said, that's the blood from Yom Kippur. And this is what the high priest did. Right? So that's why Rabbeinu Bachai over here says, talking about the blood that's on it. So the footnote over here mentions, what do you mean the blood on it? What's it talking about? What's it a reference to? So it says reference the whole story when the Nebuzaradan. That's what it's referenced to, right? And we mentioned that it's talking about the Dam of Yom Kippur, the blood of Yom Kippur, that the Kohen Gadol sprinkled, and he placed on the Aron. And that's why it's called the Kapores, this covering of the ark, because, play on the words, it was Machaper. It atones for the sins of the Jewish people. Right? That's essentially what the Rebbeinu Bachai says in the name of the Medrash. I guess that's a good place. Good place to stop, because whatever, next verses are totally other things here. So any questions? Any questions on any of that? Or any general question? But I'll end with one last thing. Keep in mind, we mentioned that this is a hard process, right? And the reason it's a hard process is because we're not looking for converts. We're not interested in converts. But if someone wants to convert and they show they're the real deal, very good. But, it can be a lonely process. Less than 20% finish the process for any number of reasons. It's hard. There's no question about it. And it's supposed to be hard. That's what it's supposed to be. No one says it's supposed to be easy by any stretch. Someone asks about Emunah. faith and belief in God, suffering, right? Isn't it true? Man can be deceitful. Yeah, what's the Torah say? Torah tells me, aren't the thoughts of man bad from the beginning? Isn't that why God says I want to wipe out man? And then he said, I'll never do it again. Because he understands man can be extremely cruel. Right? It starts by kids. Kids can be cruel to others. Totally cruel. They can bully people. They can do all kinds of things. Ruin people in general. So, when they get adults, you would hope people change. Certainly for the better. But don't adults also? Can they also ruin people? Sure. Can they be deceitful? Sure. Deceitful in business, other things? Sure. There's no question. Some people would say, I lost my faith in man. Could be. We do terrible things. Sometimes, many times over. And, and there are people who don't care. They, we mentioned before, they don't care. They don't even care what the repercussions are. It comes to an addict, a gambler, someone like that. When do they finally go for help? Right? Sometimes they finally go for help when they lose everything. That's when they go for help. Now, does that have to come to that? No. But a lot of times they can't stop. 100%, they can't stop. They just say, okay, the next thing. There's the story of somebody I just heard recently also. Guy gets married, is working a minimal paid job, he's got a bunch of kids, and he's working, whatever, he's got a lot of money at his disposal. I shouldn't say it's a minimal job. He's working, I forget what type of company, but but he's in charge of a lot of money. And what happened? He took some money and he said, okay, get myself out of the hole. I'm going to take a huge chunk of money, and I'm going to put it in the stock, because everyone's saying the stock's going to go up. And then I'll put the money back, and, I'll take the money out and, whatever. So what happened? Stock tanked. We lost some money, a huge amount of money. So what did the guy think after that? Okay, I'll put more money in. What happened? Ruined. Totally ruined. He's telling someone, I lost my wife, I lost my kids, So, it's before Yom Kippur, so he's saying you got to move on. You're right, you made a serious mistake. Serious mistake. And Rebbe said, you live in the past, you have no future. The person was a fool thinking this. Everyone told him, wow, the stock's going to go way up, blah, 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 you got nothing to worry about. Well, guess what? It didn't happen that way. So he messed himself up, but he messed up his family in the process. So we got to be careful whatever we do. 100%. But, was this person evil incarnate? No. He made a serious mistake. Serious misjudgment. No question. And had a lot of ramifications. But he's not evil incarnate. But yeah, it caused a lot of damage. Should have been more careful, whatever, a lot of things. So yeah, we make decisions. We make bad decisions. Really bad decisions. And at the end of the day, we can still repent. There's still tshuva. There's still the ability to come back. But the problem is we beat ourselves up and say, can't, I did this, I did that, the other thing, it's over. Why should God accept my repentance? This one's not going to accept it. No one else is going to accept it. Why should God accept it? Because he has mercy. God has mercy. Is it infinite mercy? I wouldn't say it's infinite. But God has a lot of mercy. Gives a person a lot of leeway. A lot of leeway to be able to come back. That's what he does. That's what that's what we have the ability to do. So we got to be careful, right? Essentially, we got to be careful what we do. And there are many far-reaching ramifications. Right? Someone asks about just finish Parashas Noach. So what's the story about staring at a rainbow? Right? Why aren't you allowed to stare at a rainbow? So what does a rainbow represent? In general. So what does God say? God says that it's going to be a rainbow. Tells Noah it's going to be, it's going to be appear when he wants to destroy the world. It's going to serve as a reminder of his promise. He's never going to destroy the world again, right? As God says in Genesis chapter 9, verse 8 to 17. So if a person sees a rainbow, it's brought down according to Jewish law. Don't, shouldn't tell anyone else, right? Because it's like sharing bad news. But you could tell me, there's a rainbow that also appeared during, righteous generations, time of King Hezekiah, right? The great Kabbalist, Shimon Bar Yochai, right? So, a rainbow can be a good thing, can be a bad thing, right? Now, it could be, right? Someone will say, as we said before, maybe we're not worthy. Maybe we're not worthy. And it could be only very special generations never saw a rainbow at all. Right. So, a person doesn't have to think, a person doesn't have to think in general. I saw it, maybe it's bad or whatever. It's a reminder, right? Or it's a reminder of the world today. Right. And we can, certainly appreciate that God's going to preserve the world. Right. So to speak. So now, that being the case, if a person saw a rainbow, if they saw a rainbow, are you allowed to look at it intensely? Right? That's the question over here. Right? That is the question. So if you look at it, as we said before, contemplating that, contemplating what it is, what it represents, it's one thing. What does it correspond to? God's presence. So if you look at it, it's considered like you're looking at God's presence. That's why you shouldn't stare at it, for a great amount of time. Also, the Gemara says that if a person stares at it excessively, it's like you're not taking care for the honor of your Creator. And it's better you didn't come into the world. Well, that's pretty bad. So a person can see it, you shouldn't stare at it intensely. Right? Not only that, it can cause your eyesight to weaken. Also brought down according to Kabbalah, that there are klipos that surround the rainbow, try and darken the lights. Again, another reason why it shouldn't be looked at. Also, the whole question about not telling others that you saw it, right? Maybe it's slander, right? Because if you would have told them, that you have an obligation to go see it, no. What about taking a picture? Seemingly, you shouldn't take a picture of a rainbow either. Again, why are you taking a picture of it? In order to, for the sake of, let's say, studying it more, looking into it more. Publicizing the picture would be no different, so to speak, but that would need, further clarification. What about the reflection? Some say staring at the reflection also. You shouldn't do. But again, what's the purpose over here? What's the purpose of a rainbow? It's to arouse divine mercy upon the world, right? Reminds us of our status. God destroyed the world once, etc. That, or it could be also, the Zohar says that, when a rainbow is seen, it's a sign that evil people have reached the point of needing destruction. Well, that's never good. I mean, it is good in a certain way, they'll get destroyed, but, it's at that point. You're at that point. And that our forefathers prayed for them, that shouldn't happen. Right? So, yeah, it's bad. Definitely bad. There are also two types of rainbows. One can be a natural rainbow. Second one can be that which God placed a sign for the covenant. Right. So whatever, different things over here. I hope that answered the question. Let me see. Any other questions? Yeah. Any other questions? All right. There are no other questions. I am going to stop here. I do this every Sunday, 9 o'clock Eastern time, normally 4 o'clock Eastern time, just an hour earlier this week because we just changed the clocks. Next week, we'll go back to the normal time for anyone who doesn't change the clocks. Otherwise, I'm going to sign out. Anyone has any questions, find me on Facebook at Michael Chaim Kaufman or beyond Orthodox Conversion Judaism. You can send me an email, rabbichaimkaufman@gmail.com, RBBICHAIMCOFFMAN @gmail.com. Wish everyone a good